Hello, we're going to get started now. My name is Helen Hall, and I'm the host. And I want to welcome all participants. Before I turn things over to Angela, I'm going to go over a few housekeeping rules. Please type your questions in the chat pod that's to the right of the presentation screen, and the presenter will respond to your questions at the end of the presentation. And I'm going to turn things over to Angela. Here is Angela Harris.
Hello, everybody. Just wanted to welcome everybody to Presenting a Positive Image, and thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. And this will be a very interactive presentation. We're going to do some polls and ask some questions. And Helen is going to help me field any questions that come in over the chat. So if I miss somebody, we'll come back and get you. As a little bit of a introduction, my name is Angela Harris, and I currently work for ASQ, the American Society for Quality. My job entails standards development for documents such as ISO 9001, 14001, 26,000, social responsibility. But I do a lot of HR consulting and career planning work on the side, which is why I'm here today. I've been a recruiter for organizations such as Kodak and Chase and IBM, Bank of America, companies like PolyOne, Raytheon, and I was a corporate headhunter for quite a while. And this is really kind of a unique situation where I'm outside my normal day-to-day responsibilities, talking about something that I'm really passionate about, which is presenting a positive image. And in the past, it's always been in relation to individuals who are in the job seeking market, but this time I'm gonna try and help everybody with some tips and tricks about what's gonna be important in presenting a positive image. So with all of that, we'll get started. And if you have questions, as Helen said, we're going to type them into the chat box. She's going to flag me down, and I'll be happy to answer those as we go. And away we go. So we'll start off with a poll question. And the poll is, what element of the image do you think is most important? And so we're going to do a quick poll. Ooh, exciting. I can see the results already as they're being calculated, so interesting. And Helen, are we gonna show the results?
I did broadcast the results.
Oh, okay. So everybody can see the results. A lot of the group said physical appearance, and that's definitely something along the way that is very important. We're going to definitely talk about some elements of that. And then kind of a close runner-up was actions, and we're going to definitely highlight those. And communications got a few votes as well. So we'll definitely cover all of those elements going forward. So just as a conversation starter, what does image mean to you? And we'll talk a little bit about kind of some background and some context about why image is going to be important. And you'll notice little Mr. Blank Man. He's going to be with us throughout the presentation, and he's definitely imageless in some way. So I thought that was kind of ironic. So. Out of dictionary.com, I went out and basically said, okay, what is image in kind of a formal sense? And as you can see, there are a lot of definitions and angles, and I really highlighted the two that I think are most relevant to our conversation today. One is kind of the mental image or representation, and then the other piece is this general or public perception of a company or a public figure. And it says something about careful calculation aimed at creating widespread goodwill. Kind of interesting. I did some additional homework for this group, and there's an individual by the name of Ginger Burr who is out there in cyberspace. And one of the interesting things that she really highlighted that I thought was really important was that your image is really about representing the very best in you. And so, kind of thinking a little bit forward about that, thinking about who are you and some of the ways that you might express that on a day-to-day basis. So one of the ways was through color. So if you are somebody that operates in a traditional space, maybe in the IBM space, for example, traditional suits, you have a very kind of consistent picture of what somebody who works at IBM might wear or what they might do. Conservative blue suit, things along those lines. How we articulate things. I'm sure by this point you guys all have a very clear picture of my personality, and if you could see a little bit lower, you'd know I'm waving my hands around as I'm presenting. And you probably have kind of an impression of who I am and what I might be about based on the presentation today. And one other idea about who you are is how you might walk. Confident stride, kind of a shuffle. What are your feet doing during that time? So just kind of opening up the conversation a little bit with these ideas. I also wanted to share with the group a study from the University of Texas regarding first impressions. And that's definitely something that everybody says, can't redo a first impression and those sorts of things. This study was pretty specific. What they did in general was they took pictures of individuals in natural stances, and based on that, they had individuals that both knew the individual and external sources compare the information about what that stance and what that person was like. So they compared people who are knowledgeable about this person, the person's self-perception, and then somebody who didn't know that individual. And what they observed was that there was naturally expressive behavior, stances, smiling, and that the judgments were accurate 9 out of 10 times, which is kind of interesting. So the 10 traits that they studied were extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, emotional stability, openness, likability, self-esteem, loneliness, religious aspects, and political orientation. So if they were accurate on 9 of those 10 traits, it's kind of amazing, what you would really think about that. I did leave the link if you wanted some more information, and you can see some of the photos that they took and what the evaluations were and things along those lines. It was pretty interesting reading. So the findings really clearly say that whether you smile or how you stand provide important clues as to who that individual might be. And they had direct correlations for extroverts who smile, go figure, and sort of things about being neat and stylish, maybe meaning that you're less likely to have a healthy, neat appearance, but if you have a distinctive style of dress, you might be more creative or open to new experiences. The researchers also found that males who have a neat and healthy appearance are often seen as more conscientious. So something to think about, right? So the National Association for Colleges and Educators does a study every single year about kind of attributes that employers seek. And what's really interesting about this is if you look at this list of characteristics, communication, work experience, motivation, teamwork, leadership. Oh, and I cut that one off. So sorry, that's leadership. GPA, technical skills, interpersonal skills, analytical skills, and ethics. And what's most interesting to me about this list of characteristics is most of them aren't hard technical skills related to the job. A lot of them are the soft skills, and they're things that we can demonstrate in workplace as well as in interviews, and I will argue out in the social media space. So today we're going to cover 4 elements of image. We're going to talk about physical appearance, we're going to talk about actions, we're going to talk about communications, and we're going to talk about online persona. And we'll start with physical appearance. So everybody knows the story about, the first impression. Think about a snapshot of exactly what this individual sees when they first meet you. I think it's really important to maintain good posture, little details. Some of these are going to be do's and don'ts, and it might be just a mental checklist of things to kind of think about as you're presenting your issue. And if you have printed out, the slide deck will be available. You might want to go back and circle the things that you kind of want to think about a little bit going forward. Clean and polished shoes. They say a lot of interviewers, including me, will look at somebody's shoes. How much care is being taken? Are they polished? Things along those lines. Always is a good tip. You want to have a great dry cleaner and an excellent tailor. Nothing says more about a person's suit is how well tailored it is and how well it fits you. So definitely worth the investment, small investment, big rewards for dry cleaners and tailors. So that's my plug for those businesses today. Lint roller, keep one in your desk or in your car. Good haircut. True story, I was supposed to get my hair cut before I came on today, but my hairstylist called in sick, so I wasn't able to do it. Too funny. But wanted to talk a little bit about what I call wolfies. And those are kind of that back of the neck kind of scrub. Always having that clean and a neat neckline is really, really important. And for you guys out there, good shave is really, really, really important. And Helen's saying, great suit, but bad shoes. Bad combination. So definitely finish off your outfits with good shoes. Good point, Helen. And in, as you're if you're in job search or if you're looking for that new promotion, I think it's really important to kind of avoid the fads and the trends and really, really focus on things that are kind of on the classic side. Your classic black suit, your classic blue suit. You're never going to go wrong with a crisp white shirt. Always paying attention to the collar and right around the neck area, and making sure that that's clean and up to date. So physical appearance continued. So now we've got our punk rocker. I'm sure that you all jumped right to that. What I think is really, really important is when you go into a social setting and you're having a physical, you're presenting yourself in a physical way, it's really, really important to know your audience and know the event and be dressed appropriately for that. For you girls out there, I'm referring to the girls, if you know what I mean. Make sure that the girls are covered appropriately and that you aren't showing too much cleavage. I've been in a lot of interviews where individuals are wearing kind of the shells and the shell doesn't hang quite appropriately, and we can run into some issues with that. So just make sure that you have really good kind of that layer underneath your suits to make sure that there's not too much showing. Clean fingernails. Make sure that everything is cleaned out from underneath the fingernails. We all have moments where, we might have been in the garden or what have you, but keeping clean and trim fingernails is really important. Perfume and cologne. There are a lot of people out there who are actually allergic to those substances. So if you're going to use a scent in the workplace or going into an interview, you want to make sure that you're not overdoing it. So keep an eye on that. Limiting your accessories is also something that is probably helpful. You'll notice today I didn't wear any earrings because you don't want to have things hanging and shining and dangling in the way, which can be a distraction for the messages that you're trying to convey. So kind of keep it simple, not too much, a lot of rings, kind of what impression do you have of somebody who has a lot of rings? I have a question from one of the audience members, and they say, well, what if you don't have a person around to teach you about suit selection and a good tailor? Excellent question. There are a lot of stores in the United States, but I would assume that this would be the case elsewhere for those of you who are outside, that there are personal shoppers available in the stores. So I know like Macy's and even Boston Store and some of the other kind of higher end stores have personal shoppers that are available to kind of help you pick out suits that are kind of conform to bodies. And I know that can be a little bit of a challenge. And those individuals basically can help you kind of pick brands that may be best suited for your body type. And they also usually have really, really good access to a tailor and may have a recommendation for you on that. So, great point on that. Oh, and he says, I ask in big cities like London, they rush you. Yeah, it's like that. But it might be beneficial to find somebody that's not necessarily in a store then, somebody that you can really, really work with, kind of maybe on the more mom and pop shop environment. So thanks for your comments there, you guys. So we're on piercings and tattoos. I would ask a poll question, how many of you have piercings and tattoos, but we don't want to get sidetracked so early. But obviously, in a business environment, it's important to kind of keep those things to a minimum or covered up when possible. And then we already talked about the personal shopper idea, which is often free to individuals who are shopping in the establishments. And again, it's, once you find a brand that seems to fit you really well, I have a problem with pants, for example. So I found a couple brands that really fit me, and then I can purchase those pants in multiple colors. So don't be afraid to do that. So dressing for success, this is just a little bit of a laundry list of things to think about in terms of business casual versus professional dress. And so when we think business casual, we're talking about khaki pants, no jacket or coat is necessary. Skirts, sweaters, blouses, nylons are still probably a very big thing for business casual. And again, polished shoes. So the way I think about business casual is coordinated separates, things that look put together and can be packaged, with accessories and things along those lines, but they're coordinated. So when you go into stores and you see combinations that are already set up for you, those are your good buys. On the professional side, dress slacks, definitely, jackets and suit coats, skirts, suits, matching portfolio or purse, always a good thing to have. And I always think when I hear professional, I think suit. So I know this picture is a little dark, but work with me just a little bit here because it was instead of doing individual pictures, I thought it might work a little bit better. So in the photo, you see in kind of right in the middle, you see a gentleman, a mannequin that has a red striped shirt and khaki pants. That's a perfect business casual dress. And right next to Mr. Casual is a great outfit. What I mean by coordinated separates, the bag and the necklace are very well coordinated, nice pants, and that's a very nice business casual look. As you move a little bit further, you're going to see more dressy individual mannequins. You see the suits for both men and for women. So just to kind of give you an idea of what I've been talking about, this was really the best picture that I could do short amount of time. So we're on to actions, and this was another from the polling. This was something that the group definitely had some interest in. So we all know how important a handshake is, and even worse, how much a turn off a bad handshake can be. So don't be afraid to practice a little bit. I got accused personally of having too strong of a handshake. I'm going in a little bit too hard with it and squeezing a little bit hard. Probably energy and enthusiasm go a long way with that. Another thing that's really important is eye contact, and nothing nothing surprising here, and no big revelations, but just a good reminder how important eye contact is, especially when you're having a conversation with somebody. Instead of taking notes or thinking off to the side, really when you're communicating especially important messages, you want to have really, really clear communication and really good eye contact. Be present. I think this is something that's kind of interesting. There was a book called The Fish Book. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of it, but the Fish Book has kind of four main principles, and one of the principles is about being present. And what that really means, and something that I've been encountering more and more over time, is that individuals aren't present in the very moment where they are. So you've probably been in meetings where individuals are on their Blackberries or texting, things along those lines, and those people aren't actually present in the meeting. So this is just a gentle reminder that, and this is social settings as well, and business settings, that it's so, so very important that whenever you are in a room, you make a very conscious decision to be present. And one of the tips, I saw it on Oprah not too long ago, but to really, really think about when you walk into a door and the door frame is your trigger, is to really think about you're walking into a room, you should walk in with intention, and that you also want to walk in with a certain level of energy. And so that was kind of a good kind of tip, and that had kind of some tactical nature to it, that when you walk into a door or through a door, that you have to kind of realign yourself and make sure that you're ready for that. Never be afraid of the personal note, personalized note. I'm a big fan of thank you notes. I have to thank my mom for that one. And nothing says more to a recruiter or somebody in your network that you took the time to write a personalized handwritten note. Can't say enough about it. And you can probably count on, one or two hands how many times you've received a handwritten note, and kind of the reaction. Think about the reaction of when you get one is really positive. So return the favor. How about body language? Very important. When you're sitting in a chair, what does it mean when you're kind of kicked back, or when you have one of these going? Hopefully you guys caught all that. Thinking really about what your body language is saying about you. Are you leaning forward? Are you interested in the conversation? Another one from my mom, she always used to say that I would sigh and have a lot of eye rolling. So even if you think you're doing it to yourself, you might want to think about how that might be picked up from some of your coworkers and people like that. I think there's a really fine line between being confident and being cocky. And so just to put a little bug in your ear about how confidence versus, I see thumbs up from my mom. Yep, thanks, Mom. Confident versus cocky. One of the things my boss said not too long ago was how important it was to him when he goes into a meeting and he's conveying important information that the individual takes notes. And I think this is a really important sign too when you're in the middle of maybe the interviews and things along those lines, to make sure that you are prepared, at least minimally prepared to take notes. And I see Diane said, as a follow-up, could you send the title author of the fish book after the presentation? Actually, it's already in the reference section of this slide deck, so you'll be all set. Actions continued. Actions continued. You never know who is behind you in line or around the corner at a restaurant, or in the bathroom when you're having a conversation, work-related conversation. So just another friendly reminder. Definitely had a couple occurrences where you never know who's standing around you. So one more reminder on that. Be punctual. Uh, I read Miss Manners articles and online, which is always helpful. Be prepared for meetings. Huge. I work in an organization that's pretty meeting happy, and you might too. And I can't tell you how much respect I get because I always come into a meeting prepared. So I read the agenda, I make sure I know what's going to be talked about, I know when I'm supposed to be presenting information. And so, just another gentle reminder that going into meetings and situations well prepared, or if you're going into a networking event, making sure that you have business cards available, and that they're in your pocket and ready to go. Always a good tip. The smile factor. Whether you're on the phone or in person, it is going to be really important for you to smile. One of my biggest successes as a recruiter was, even though they weren't in front of me face to face, and this was kind of pre Skype and all of the video conferencing, how great it is that people always reacted to me because they knew I was smiling on the phone. And so don't be afraid to take that on and use the smile factor. Being confident but not overconfident, another thing. And we've heard attitude is everything, and certainly none more the case when we're trying to present ourselves positively when we're doing actions. Fresh breath, enough said. Watch jokes. What's funny to one person is not so funny to others, so just keep that in mind. Always have business cards available. Watch out for gossip and politics. Another one, maintain confidentiality. There are things that you get, information that you get that you want to make sure are important and maintained in confidence. And one of the things that has made me a good recruiter, a good friend, and certainly a good colleague at work is that all my conversations are held in the strictest confidence and that I maintain that. And if I am in the position where I'm going to be sharing information that I learned, that it's really important for me to contact that person and ask permission first. And that's really how you get a reputation for being have a high level of integrity. Woo, trying to get that out. The other thing is to be aware of some of your nervous habits. Some people, pick cuticles. Some people scratch their heads. Some people do hair flips. That's one of mine. So just be aware of what your nervous habits are, and make sure that when you are doing that you become conscious of it, and then you think about why you're nervous. And that's one of the ways you can kind of get over some nervousness. So, just a few tips about how to create credibility at work. Having a positive attitude, I can do that. Meet and exceed deadlines, always perfect. Bosses love that. Ask good questions, or don't be afraid to ask questions. And I know a lot of this is a review, but this is it's a total package. These are all the little things that you need to do to have a good image. Use positive language. We all have people that we work with and socialize with that don't use a lot of positive language, tend to be a little bit negative, and nobody really wants to work with those individuals or socialize with those individuals. So again, this is another piece of your image that's going to be really important. One of the things that I get tons and tons of kudos for is that when I bring a problem to my supervisor, I always try to bring a solution as well. And that always builds credibility in the workplace. Always follow through. Keep your personal life at home. I'm sure we all have individuals that we work with that bring too much information into the workplace, or talk a little bit too much about what they did over the weekend. So another little tidbit thing to remember. Volunteer your time. Nothing says more about your LinkedIn profile or your resume and your work experience, and gives you things to talk about that are important aside from sports. Some things in volunteer events that are important to you. and it also is a good way to build your resume. Know the difference between your coworkers and your friends, and be very cognizant of what that line is. And your job, bottom line, like it or not, is to make your boss look good. I had to learn that one the hard way. How to advance gracefully. Uh, Fire your inner prima donna. Show a little muscle means pick up some work and get it done. Sometimes acting like your own boss. So, in a lot of cases, you can take ownership for things, own up to it, and then you can, of course, claim the good positive results. So, don't be afraid to take chances, grab that opportunity. And when you do make mistakes, it's always positive to admit them, and learn from them, and move on. Dining etiquette, just some quick do's and don'ts to kind of keep in mind. Always consider dietary restrictions. Uh, Even more prevalent today, there's allergies to gluten and gluten restrictions. There seems to be even more restrictions as far as peanuts, so be very, very careful with that. There are several restaurants here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for those of you who don't know, that have, people can eat peanuts on the floor. And so just make sure if you're going into those types of environments or ballparks that your guests do not have restrictions as far as that goes. Guests always get the best seat. Always use a napkin. Excuse yourself when you need to use the restroom or need to take a, yes. And meal restrictions like kosher, excellent point. Good addition. Don't be afraid to excuse yourself if you have to take a telephone call. Choose easy to eat foods. Wow, that one was tough to get out. Not eating spaghetti at a business meeting, probably a good idea. Hold your silverware properly. Avoid toothpicks and gum. Turn off your cell phone. Always tip between 15 and 20% when you're in a business environment, regardless of what the service was, because people are watching. And I always talk about preparing sparkling dinner conversation. So I might be going to a business dinner and I don't know everybody at the table. So I always try to find some unique conversation starters. I pick science, for example. So I subscribe to the NASA website and get information about the latest in space because it seems to be somewhat non-controversial. And I always say, oh, did you know that they found a new planet? Or did you know that they are sending a new, that they retired the Atlantis series of, or the Challengers. So just coming up with sparkling dinner conversation and preparing, again, be prepared for that. 15% of the food total. And that's for the United States. I didn't think to check for other countries. Communication, our third group of information. Be a good listener. I think, yeah, Radu's correct. Sometimes, I know when I was in Germany, people don't tip there. Thought it was kind of interesting. So we were leaving tip, and I guess it's an insult. Not so good, huh? Here's a big one, marble-mouthed messages. As a recruiter, nothing would tick me off more as I'd get a telephone call back from an applicant and they would leave a marble-mouthed message. So it would go something like this. This is Rob, I'm gonna call you back about the blah, 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 and my telephone number is blah, 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 blah. Okay, so as a recruiter, I probably know 57 Bobs in my searches. And it's really, really, really important for you to give a first name, a last name, and as a trigger when somebody's taking a message, and I'm sure you all have experienced this, start out by saying area code, and that will let them know that we're talking about the first couple digits of the number. I even do it when I'm local because there's several area codes in my in my region, and there's a lot of crossover. And so area code is a trigger and gives the person taking the message the ability to flip over from verbal recognition, like name, letters, to the numbers aspect. So it helps in taking messages along the way. And nothing makes me happier, especially for a new contact, is a repeat on the telephone number, because we've all had instances where we've maybe juxtaposed two numbers and things along those lines. We talked about saying it with a smile, absolutely. Avoid slang and jargon. And in some cases, the techno speak, when you are in situations, especially maybe you're at a social event with dinner and you might be with a coworker and you guys are talking techno speak and you're leaving individuals that are at your table out of the discussion. So remember to keep those individuals in the loop by kind of explaining some of the jargon or techno speak. Maintaining good eye contact, and don't forget when you're listening to give somebody the good old nod and smile. Oh yeah, I understand. Or how was that? The nod and smile. Use first name and last name when doing introductions. Avoid speakerphones whenever possible, especially when you're at home. So maybe you're taking a professional telephone call in the home. Watch your background. I can't tell you how many times I've called candidates on the telephone, maybe afternoon time, and for those of you who know who Jerry Springer is, you can hear Jerry Springer loudly in the background. Not always the best impression. Use words of courtesy, please, thank you, may I. Watch I and think we. So when you are describing your background or projects that you're working on, one of the things that I really had to learn along the way is to be very inclusive and make sure that I'm using things like we completed the project on time instead of I. You might have done 99.9% of the work, but being a we person goes a long way to building teamwork and professional relationships. To be a cut above, don't cut. That means gossip and things along those lines. No profanity. Use grammar, good grammar, punctuation, and spelling. I can't tell you how many times I have run in emails individuals that have bad grammar, bad punctuation, bad spelling, overuse of exclamation points, and things like that. So again, just another piece of the image that we want to kind of be thinking about. And I always like a follow-up or as we agreed letter, especially in business situations where you might be in negotiations and things along those lines. Everybody knows we've dealt with people who have selective memories about what actually happened in meetings. And I always like to follow up with a as we agreed letter that says, you know, we had this meeting, here are the topics that we talked about, and here's what we agreed on. And it's also a great record when you need to go forward. Michelle makes an excellent point. Be careful of we in interviews. You don't want to lessen personal accomplishments. Absolutely. Really, really excellent point. Yep. Good one, guys. Like it. Online presence. So in our initial poll, online presence got very little play, very few votes. And I'm here today to tell you a little something different about your online persona, and hopefully we'll have some ahas here. So your online persona encompasses a lot of things today. We talk about Facebook and MySpace and Foursquare, LinkedIn and Twitter, blogs, things along those lines, and there's email and other communication out there. So everybody knows that written emails are a record of a conversation, so be careful. Video conferencing. So right now I'm kind of in a video conference situation. I worked pretty hard to find a wall at ASQ that doesn't have stuff on it. So watch your background, watch your noise, make sure you have good lighting. Thank you, Helen, for those tips from before. Again, watching spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Can't repeat that enough. Be politically and religiously neutral. Very, very important. I know there are probably a lot of you that belong to political parties and that are involved on that level. Make sure that if you are going to be involved in those environments, that you are very conscious about that decision. So, you may decide that you're a Democrat and you're going to work very hard to get the president reelected or what have you. And if that's a conscious decision on your part, know that it's a very polarizing decision. So let's just say 50% of people aren't going to agree with you. So when you make those kinds of decisions, just make sure that you know that, and this is especially true on resumes, unless you're in a key role or a key position or it's directly germane to the position that you're applying to, you may want to leave that information off. And proofread, kind of a no-brainer, right? Online presence continued. So here's my big tip of the day. Really, really think about this. Your online persona can be now your first impression. It used to be face to face, right? Now your online persona may be the first impression someone has of you. And so it's going to be really, really important for you to think very strategically about what you have out there. Think about what your identifiers are. I'll never forget the day in a recruiting environment where one of my candidates had an email address, scream until you like it, at, well, what does that mean? It's kind of strange, right? Watch for the dusty filing cabinets. Watch your screensavers. What your screensaver has on it says a lot about you. Be sure you're creating a positive buzz. We'll talk about other online media in a second. Good point. We'll get to that. So, and one other tip is to Google yourself. And so, with that, Helen is going to post a poll. How many people have Googled themselves? Aha. So I think everybody can see the results. So we have 63% said yes. Awesome. Yes, but not recently was 20%. We'll talk about that. And about 15% of you said no. So here's the poll. We did that. Sorry. Some common findings. So when you signed up and registered for this presentation, one of the things that we said was that you're going to get a personal gift from the presenter. That's me. And so what I did for the first 50 registrants was go out and Google you. So from me in the next week, you will receive a report of what I found about you. When we had you sign up, basically we collected your first name, your last name, hometown information, and so you'll get a report from me about what I found. What's interesting about it, and in the trends, I'm probably about 3/4 of the way done with the reports. And so I saw some common trends. One is a lot of the references were academic in this particular group, which I thought was great. A lot of people were missing photos, which can be a positive or negative, but something definitely to think about. Nothing says professional than a professionally taken headshot. A lot of references to IEEE, and I give this group a lot of credit for that. Basically, kind of links back on LinkedIn back to IEEE, which was fantastic. And a lot of you had publications and journal articles, case studies, and white papers, and those sorts of things published through IEEE. That was awesome. Good job, you guys. There are people that had multiple people, and I couldn't necessarily determine if that was you or not. And this is really important because there's a bad Angela Harris running around Milwaukee. Now, I'm Angela S. Harris, and there's an Angela R. Harris running around the city, racking up debt, causing mayhem, civil suits everywhere. And so, whenever I can, I try to include the S in my public or personal branding so they know that I'm the good Angela. LinkedIn. A word about LinkedIn. As a recruiter, LinkedIn is the #1 tool used by recruiters today. So if you are not out there, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you're out in that space. And we'll get into a little bit of detail about that. Talking about Facebook, Twitter, and MySpace, and some of those other social networking, Foursquare, things along those lines. Whether or not you have your security settings set, I can find it. There are all kinds of techniques on how URLs are constructed. I can come in to see photos through your friends and your friends' pages. So just a word of caution about what is being presented about you, and making sure that you're not always checking in at a bar or a certain organization. And it does present some security risk for particularly the ladies if you are sharing with individuals your exact location and a lot of times. So again, being really, really careful about those things. And the last thing that was kind of interesting about some findings, there were definitely a few individuals that I didn't find anything about. And so that may be a choice, or it may make them really hard to find as a recruiter. Just saying. So some things to ponder. What are the assumptions being made about you by older or younger generations? And a lot of this has to do with images. Some of the other presentations that I do are about intergenerational relationships in the workplace. And so thinking about, what your appearance, your clothing says about you, familiarity with online media and things along those lines. What are all those things saying about, what are the differences? And my mom likes Chicos. So bright colors and, flashy outfits and things along those lines. Go, Mom. And I'm more black and white, traditional, comes directly out of Gen X. And so just really understanding, what might be preferences of other generations, especially as you go forward. What does your desk, nightstand, car say about you? Is your desk messy, straight, neat? And what's on your nightstand? There was a tip on a dating site not too long ago that my friend shared with me, and she said that one of the first things that guys do when they first meet you is check out what's on your nightstand. Are there self-help books? Are there, joke books? Is it magazines? So what's on your nightstand might have something to say about you. Another thing to ponder is, what is the one thing that you're going to do tomorrow to improve your image? Any thoughts on that from the group? I see some things. Polish my shoes. Good one. Anything else? One more coming in. Smile more. Yeah, huge one. Sparkling dinner conversation. Good one. Yay! So glad that you guys picked up good stuff. I call it, if you can get one golden nugget out of a presentation, I think it's worthwhile. So, who have you met recently that you feel presented themselves well or didn't present themselves well? And really kind of put some thought to why they had such a good impression or didn't have a good impression. Was it the handshake? Was it eye contact? Was it that they were prepared for a meeting? So, when you're really impressed by somebody, don't be afraid to take some tips and tricks from that individual. And finally, a little tip about mirroring. And it's kind of a tip that I use when I'm coaching clients for interviews is people like themselves, if that makes any sense. That was a lot. And you want to really take your energy level cues, eye contact cues, even position sitting cues from the individual that you're speaking with. So if you're working with somebody that has lots of energy and is doing arms and is really enthusiastic, you want to demonstrate those same characteristics because people hire people that are like them. So take some cues along those lines. So we have a third poll question for you. What element of your image do you feel you need the most work on? This polling feature is really fun. I like it. Interesting. Very interesting. We got a lot more votes on communications. That was good. And I got swung a few people on online persona, so that's good too. Thank you very much, Helen, for doing that. So, kind of to sum up, there are so many pieces to your image. And to really think about, I know we presented a laundry list of things to really think about. And, it was kind of a long to do list, and hopefully it didn't come across too much like that. But there are so many pieces that really are elements to your image that you really need to be cognizant of. And there's a lot of press today about personal branding and really to be cognizant about, okay, this is my online persona. This is what people in the space are really going to see about me going forward. What message am I sending through, my wardrobe choices, through my communications on a daily basis, from my handshake, from eye contact? What will they learn about your sparkling dinner conversation? And I hear some echoing on personal branding, huge. All these pieces are a piece of your personal brand. And so we probably could have called this Personal Branding 101 or something like that. But all these pieces are really important. So thank you so much. I will take additional questions or comments as we go. I always welcome contacts on LinkedIn, so don't be afraid to connect with me. I'm also on Twitter, and I also take questions through Ask Angela. As the little bit of advertisement, I do provide some career exploration searches assistance for job seekers. I do a lot of professional speaking. The next slide has a list of the things that I present on, and I'm always available to answer questions or career advice or ideas or personal clarification. I kind of like being connected to people. And I wanted to and I do have one other tidbit for you guys. I had to make a note because I found it this morning and it didn't make the slide deck. The Wall Street Journal had an article on Tuesday called "No More Resumes, Say Some Firms." And this was an article about how there were certain venture capital firms and some other organizations that are no longer accepting resumes. They want direct links to your web presence or a short video presentation. So this may be the online persona may be something new moving forward. I do have all my references here, including the fish book. There are YouTube videos on the Pike Market fish experience as well. So you might get that information there as well. It's kind of an entertaining video about attitude is everything and being present and things along those lines. So those are the references from the presentation. And wanted to extend a very big thank you to Helen Hall, Daryl Griffin, and Chris Brantley of IEEE for letting me come and present today. So thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you. I'm going to end it. Bye-bye.